Everything starts with the master standing on a huge mountain and looking at the beautiful view for a very long time. Although at this time he should have had a training, it was noticed by passing girls and talked about this topic. Allegedly, the Holy Son has already been looking at the scenery for 3 hours and is most likely not going to practice. One of the girls replies that they just don't understand anything. At the level of the Holy Son, understanding is much more important than cultivation. If one dares to violate the enlightenment of the Holy Son, they risk death or the harshest punishment possible. The Holy Son is indeed the reincarnation of the great emperor, and he is indeed gaining enlightenment. This has been going on for half a month now. Some admire this strong interaction, and of course, we cannot ignore the fact that he is a very handsome guy who does not leave without attention of many girls. They dream of becoming his wife, and there is no one who would not want to meet him. He is so inaccessible and busy that some have never heard his voice. His personality is so mysterious that people don't know what his character is like, or how he might react if someone suddenly just walks up to him and gets to know him. At some point, the guy starts shouting at the top of his voice that he doesn't know anything about enlightenment and is only here because he has nothing to do, and also because he wants to show off and remind himself of his greatness. He often wonders if there is anyone in this world who is more miserable than he is. Turns out the guy doesn't understand how he ended up in this hellish place out of nowhere. The last thing he remembers is riding a bicycle, looking at some beautiful girl and not noticing how he was hit by a car. There was a serious accident, and after that he doesn't remember anything. He felt only one thing, that literally after a moment, he was in another body and a completely different world, which is very different from the previous one, where he was an ordinary young man. There was a powerful explosion that threw him several meters into the sky. From that moment, the guy was unconscious and does not know what happened next. In the end, it turned out that he came to this world and became Li Ron, a holy son of the temple, and with the same name and surname. Now he is in the body of a ruthless man who, to get divinity, hunted thousands of righteous disciples. Because he thought that a few of his disciples were talking too much, he destroyed their inner elixirs. His previous incarnation was sullen, cruel, ruthless, and extremely cold. If he didn't hold the position of a holy son of the palace, he would have been destroyed or turned into little pieces long ago, even if he was a genius. He now has a complete lack of understanding. If he was allowed to replace the villain, then why didn't they seal his cultivation? Now the guy is just an exhibit, handsome but useless. The others who travel through time have fingers of gold, and he only has a bunch of enemies just waiting to get rid of and eliminate a competitor. As suddenly, some window appears that only he can see. It says about some system of one good deed a day. It's dedicated to helping the host turn over a new leaf and become a new man. The system will give out a random task and he will be rewarded if he completes any of them. The higher the degree of completion of the task, the higher the reward. The name of this system seemed a bit strange to him. It turns out that one good deed a day means that he has to do a good deed every day anyway, even if he doesn't want to, except that it doesn't match his former personality as he was in that world. Since the host is too cold-blooded and has no close friends to influence the host's heart, the system advised to start a love affair. The first task should be done within 24 hours. You need to take the initiative to confess feelings to a person of the opposite sex and get the consent of the other party. Having completed the task, he will receive a reward. The amount of reward depends on the degree of completion of the task, and then began to resent, allegedly, he, a holy son of the palace, he has the role of a villain and do good deeds. It is certainly good, but does not apply to him in any way. He does not understand why he was given this particular task, where you need to immediately confess to someone in feelings. Immediately, the next notification appears asking if the host is going to give up and give up the task. You have to answer within a few seconds. Then, a warning appears. If the host gives up the task, the host cultivation will be sealed permanently, and the system will be in a sleep state indefinitely. Hearing this information, the guy's aggression and anger reaches an incredible level. He becomes angry at everything that happens. He wants to go back to his past life because with each notification, someone is trying to destroy his nervous system as if on purpose. To cope with the task, he tried to smile, but it didn't work. The guy can't imagine how he will confess his feelings to some girl if he has never done it before. He's ashamed of what he has to do, And what upsets him the most is the fact that he has no choice but to accept it, unless he wants to die. After that, he thought that in order to fall in love, he had to find a second person, because he couldn't do it alone. He had to find a girl to whom he could confess his feelings, and preferably that she would reciprocate them. It seems that this is simply impossible. Even in his past life, the guy constantly avoided relationships, and now he has to do it in order to stay alive. How can you find a girl who will reciprocate from the first time, and she will not have to be persuaded? It's unreal. He thought it was a joke at first, but apparently he really has to do it. Very interesting how it will look like, and whether there will be a girl who, not knowing the man, will agree to create some kind of relationship. Although, given this fact that everyone dreams of being with him, maybe it's not that bad. For starters, he came to some house and started knocking on the window. There's probably someone here who might be suitable for this assignment. It's amazing that he agreed so quickly, and all that anger disappeared somewhere. It seems that from this point on, the most interesting thing starts. A person who in his past life avoided relationships should do everything possible to start them. Meanwhile, the four girls were returning from some kind of meeting, and they regretted that the elder had kept them longer today, for they had missed the Holy Sun himself coming to their territory. In the end, they never had time to see him. He left very quickly and did not pay attention to them, because he was focused on the mission. One of the girls comes to the other and asks if she has finished her medicine, because she is just about to send a shipment to the principal and could take her medicine for one. The girl said that of course everything was ready and thanked me for my help, because she had very little time to take her medication. Rosie, a master who wields amazing power. Everyone loves her very much, because she is very fair, and from her literally emanates the energy of harmony. She is very comfortable to talk to and be around. After one of the assistants brought in some paperwork and told her the information, she asked her to step back and said that for now, very busy. She's not in the mood today, which is very rare, except that when she is, it's really best not to get close to her. She becomes the most aggressive person in the world. She's very unhappy about something. Something clearly didn't go according to plan. Rosie doesn't like things to go wrong. It turns out that she is against falling in love, and any relationship, she believes that falling in love makes people make wrong conclusions and do rash things. So she made a promise to herself many years ago that she would never fall in love with anyone. This will not happen even if someone dares to force her. She is against it all and even forbids her assistants to talk about it, especially in her presence. It's a very strange rule, but still, it is. It's strange that, given all that, the helpers think she's very kind and fair. In the meantime, the assistant who wanted to hand over the elixirs came to her. She asks where to take them because she sees that Rosie has been outside all day. The master asked her to hand it all over and leave. Only after the assistant had left did she return to her office and open a batch of the new elixir. The students had made great progress lately, and she liked it a lot. She believes that the most important thing is not to be distracted by relationships, especially with any of their colleagues, because it can have a very bad effect on the result of their work. When suddenly, the girl notices that instead of one of the medicines, she was put some kind of stone. It looks very much like the object that Saint Sun that house in the afternoon. Rosie immediately wanted to find out who is so brave. Just a second later, thanks to her amazing power, she was able to see the person who did this. Liran couldn't hide his identity, and doesn't even realize that the master had already found out everything. She doesn't understand why he did that, because he used to always come and talk in person, without all the trickery and machinations. It turns out that in this way, he wanted to leave a letter, or rather, a message with the following words: "I like summer rain, rainbow after rain, and Rosie." Hearing her name, the girl could not believe her ears and eyes. Just now the guy confessed her feelings. But how is this possible, and why did he do this to her, knowing how Rosie feels about it all? Is it really some kind of mistake? After all, Liran had heard from her personally more than a dozen times that there was no room for feelings and relationships in her life. He had conveyed something like that in a video message where he started complimenting and confessing what he couldn't all these years ago. They were very beautiful words, but the longer the girl read them, the more she wanted to destroy the man who had dared to say such a thing to her. To her, it was worse than disgusting. She would give anything to turn back the clock and not watch this message. She was beginning to think of him as a traitor who had not only broken the ban but had even started plotting something against her. The girl remembers very well the day she set the same rules for everyone. She never thought that anyone would break them, and even less that she would be involved in it. It's a very ambiguous situation. So to resolve it once and for all, she called that guy over and asked him to explain everything she had just heard through a message. If he doesn't say anything now, or continues in this vein, she's sure the man will regret it very much. So it's up to him now. She started to ask if he even realized what a mistake he'd made, especially given this fact that they could have a strictly business relationship and nothing else. At this moment, the guy thinks only about one thing, that in fact, the message was addressed to a completely different person. Namely, the same girl who gave her medicine to a colleague, because she did not have time to do it herself. The guy thought that the girl saw the message and sent it to the master on purpose to punish the offender. Very interesting how he explained this situation because the owner is very angry. He needs to come up with something that saves him from being punished and hated by her. In fact, she genuinely reads that this guy is very handsome, but the rules she's made for herself, including herself, are more important than all that romance. She does not even understand how she still has the strength to wait for some explanations, because long ago could have destroyed him and continue to live in peace. As suddenly, the guy did not even begin to justify himself and tell that all these words were addressed to another person. He did what was right and does not regret anything. Even though he realizes how she might react, he's taking a huge risk, because now it's not up to him, it's up to Rose, and she's not in a very good mood this morning. Liran is so brave that he decided to confess his feelings once again. At the same time, he doesn't even look her in the eyes. Who would have thought that a person who has never had experience in a relationship can speak such beautiful words and comfort even a master? Initially, it seemed as if she would just tear him apart as soon as she saw him, but in the end, he somehow miraculously manages to not only stay alive, but seeing how pleased she is to hear that, something strange happens. Despite the fact that she was delighted with what she had heard, the girl said that she was giving him a second chance and would try to pretend that none of this had happened and that she had not heard anything, and also asked that no one should find out about the situation. She has a very important reputation that she has been working on almost all her life. If suddenly, someone finds out that the Holy Son confessed his love to her, there will be a lot of rumors and talk about it. It's amazing how he managed to stay alive, usually who broke the rules. The master didn't even listen to those people. She punished them in the second, and at the moment, none of them survived. After she let him go, Liran thought of a certain cave. It is an ice cave on the mountain that contains the coldest spiritual energy in the entire world. If an ordinary person entered there, he would be frozen into an ice sculpture within a few seconds. Only top-stage masters who can use the mental palace method to protect themselves can resist the cold air inside. Even if he manages to accidentally survive once he is inside, it is a very big risk. Even the masters are afraid to go in there respectively and do not advise others to do so. After that, he wondered why he was treated so much more leniently by the master than the others. Such a thing had never happened in the history of her government. Did it mean anything? And the answer was much simpler and more obvious than it seemed. He remembers that, when he talked to her, the master had a look in his eyes as if she wasn't telling him the whole story. He had the impression that she wasn't as bad about relationships as everyone thought. Maybe she just hadn't met the one who could change her mind and prove that love was beautiful. And that made him even angrier, because it turned out that theoretically, if it weren't for these strange rules, she could have agreed, and he had accomplished his mission. In the meantime, Lee ran again, did not hold back, and went back to Rosie. He asked her not to say anything and started repeating the same words he had said a few minutes ago. Only compliments the girl had never heard in her entire life. This confession of feelings looked as if it depended on it, although it did. This time, the girl was no longer so calm and reacted much more emotionally. She asked what he allows himself, after all, the fact that she forgave him. It was a huge gift, respectively. If he does not appreciate it, she does not prevent her to punish him right now. This time, the guy didn't give up either. He started showering me with new compliments, words and looks as if he didn't see anything more beautiful in this world besides her. But really, does it work? Having made sure that this is not a bad strategy, it seems to him that it will be possible to do so always, when the master starts to get angry. Now it is clear that although she says that she hates all this, she really likes compliments, because she receives them very rarely, and all because of her rules. Very interesting to see who will win this hidden battle, so far. It's not that bad. Daring Weather Wound helps a lot. It seems as if he starts to make her angry on purpose and knows that he can calm her down later. Rosie is getting tired of it. The main thing is that the guy doesn't overdo it and stops in time. In the end, something unforeseen happened. She still could not stand it and decided to take revenge for such insolence, because patience was simply no more. The girl stepped away and, without warning, directed her power at him, which found not only him, but also the mountain on which he was standing. It was so sudden that the guy didn't even have time to react. He was sure that everything was under control, but as it turned out, it wasn't like that. The force was so enormous that there was no point in even resisting. It happened literally lightning fast in a matter of seconds. In fact, even that is a small gift. She gave him a chance to survive rather than destroying him like the others did. The Holy Sun had not expected her to do such a thing, and in fact realized that he had been overconfident. Meanwhile, just seconds later, she starts saving him again. But how is that possible? Why is she doing it? And is it really just a special lesson for the guy to remember what happens when you get too cocky? At last, instead of apologizing and promising that she will never hear anything like that again, he starts asking his questions again, namely, what's the point of living if he can't be with the person he loves anyway? He said that it wasn't necessary to save her, because without her, he supposedly doesn't need anything in this world. In fact, he really wants to understand what she thinks about it and why she suddenly decided to save him. So far, it looks like she likes the guy, but she still doesn't want to admit it even to herself. The only thing she told him was, make sure she doesn't see or hear from him for the next few months, or he'll regret the whole idea. As usual, he didn't even think of listening to her. The guy did exactly the opposite. He went up to her and started hugging her as if she was his girlfriend, whom he hadn't seen for years, and had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. After that, the girl is convinced that he is too persistent, even more than she thought. She doesn't even know how to react and what to do or say to make it stop. She starts to panic because he just doesn't listen to her, no matter what. No matter how hard she tries, he does just the opposite and smiles at her as if he's testing what she can do. And Rosie starts to get angry, not at him, but at herself, not liking that she feels powerless for the first time. In fact, despite his amazing and incredible confidence, inside the guy feels very uncomfortable. He could never believe he was capable of such a thing. Apparently, he really wants to survive and accomplish the mission. In the end, he listened to her and agreed to leave, but on one condition: if she told him who gave her the stone in which she saw the message. The girl did not understand anything and refused to say this information. She thinks that the less he knows, the better. It turned out that the girl, who did not have time to pass her medicine, accidentally mixed up the boxes, and the one with the magic stone, which conveys a message, got to the master, respectively. The girl found out that someone confesses her love and misunderstood everything, and the Holy Sun decided to continue the legend and pretended that the message was addressed to her. Things have actually gone very badly wrong. He needs some time alone to figure out how to proceed. He's so tired he can't even make a proper assessment of what's going on. Rosie felt it and was glad, because finally she could be alone without having to hear his voice. I really wonder if he will up the ante and continue to pursue this girl. Because if everything had gone according to plan and another person had gotten his message, it would have been a lot easier. The thing is that they are just incompatible. Rosie has the level of a boss. If suddenly she really does not like something, or, for example, runs out of patience, while the guy will still try to start dating her, everything can turn out very badly, and then he really will not help any confidence. The best thing he can do in the short term is to create a good plan and think about all the risks involved, because this is a lot more serious than it sounds. Even though his life depends on this mission, you have to see how doable it is, because maybe he can live longer if he does nothing at all and leaves her alone. She already gave him a chance, and didn't act like she's used to in situations like this. It's a really huge gift that needs to be treated differently than he does. Sure, a lot of girls like confident guys, but it has to be appropriate. If you overdo it, Rosie might want to retaliate for every word at any moment. Meanwhile, Liran had already managed to get home and made sure no one else bothered him. Today was a very busy day, so a lot to think about. In the end, the process was really exciting, and luckily it gave him a satisfactory result. His cultivation was restored after all. The guy was able to pick up 3 treasure chests for free, and of course he can't wait to see what's inside. A window appears in front of him, where you can confirm your wish, open all these chests. He clicks on the appropriate button, and expects to see something that will make him very happy. Very interested in what's in those chests, the main thing is that there's no punishment or anything bad in them. He looks at the screen very carefully and tries to understand what it all means, because he hasn't seen any specific words or numbers. For some reason, he doesn't understand a single word. It feels like it's some other language that not everyone knows, since there was such a problem. And to see the contents of the chests very much want to, the guy decided to use another approach. He started touching these words to feel all the things they mean. He thinks it should work. In the end, it gets even more complicated. It turns out that to parse these words, you need to focus so much that there is absolutely nothing extra in your thoughts. After that, he managed to teleport to some other place. I wonder if he realizes what's going on and how to get back from here. He began to see some kind of dome, and in it he saw himself. But it was unclear what that had to do with the meaning of those words to get the chests. It turns out that everything that is happening now is the absorption of spiritual energy. This process should be done periodically in order for the body to acquire more and more useful skills. In fact, the guy is very lucky. He does it all automatically, while other people have to spend almost the whole day on it. Just because he is a holy son, he has this ability that allows him not to waste time on any lengthy process, and that is a very valuable gift that some can only dream of. At some point, Liran got distracted and remembered today he suddenly wished that Rosie would forget all his words. As she had originally suggested, does the guy start to regret his action and want to apologize? In the meantime, the girl can't sleep. She tried to do it, but it didn't work. She is constantly tormented by the feeling that the wound won't leave her. At the same time, she doesn't want to hurt him. She couldn't stand it. She woke up and thought about what was going on. Rosie didn't know how to react. She wanted to be cruel and solve the problem in a few minutes. But for some reason, something was stopping her, and she didn't know what it was. She's so sick of thinking about it that she wants to move to another world, where no one will know her, and she can enjoy the peace of mind. Out of desperation, she went into the kitchen and decided to eat something. But even that doesn't help. That guy literally won't let her go even from a distance. She tried to sleep several times, but it's useless. She just closes her eyes as she sees his face, but for some reason, instead of getting nervous, the girl smiles, as if she's even happy about it. At this moment, the assistant comes in. She apologized for coming late and explained that she just wanted to get some results that the master promised to send in the afternoon. The thing is that because of all these things, Rosie didn't have time for anything and promised to send everything tomorrow. She apologized and said goodnight. In fact, it never happened. The girl was never distracted by anything like that and always kept her promises on time. Instead of leaving to rest, the assistant came to her and asked her what was wrong. She could see that the mistress was dissatisfied with something and did not know how to solve some problem. The assistant offered her help. Not thinking long, Rosie asked only one question. Had the girl ever fallen in love? At the same second, the assistant starts crying and apologizing. She knows the rules very well, so refused to talk about this topic and assumed that it was definitely some kind of test. She started to get very nervous, as if she answered something or supported this topic, she would be punished. Rosie immediately calmed her down and said that there were no tricks here, so the assistant could calm down and calmly answer this question. But that's not all. The girl did not have time to answer the first question. As it turned out the next, Rosie asked to allow to ask something else, whether the assistant has a boyfriend, and if so, how they spend their free time together. The girl confided and said that if it was interesting, of course, she would be happy to answer this question. There are so many things they can do together, like going for a walk in the park, listening to music together, going to a cafe, or just watching a movie in the evening. When the assistant lists all these items, Rosie starts writing it all down. It's like she's trying to capture every word. The assistant was so engrossed in her story that she started to tell what she would like to do, but hasn't had time to do with her boyfriend yet. She has a lot of ideas for dates, but unfortunately, because of her work schedule, they can't get a vacation together, especially lately. At one point, Rosie looked at her with a strange look and accidentally broke some wooden object. The assistant was very scared and said that she knew it was a test or some kind of trap. She had already accepted that she was going to be punished and started to apologize very much. She promised it wouldn't happen again, because she didn't think that when Rosie said there was no catch, there was one after all, and she didn't need to believe her. At this point, The assistant thought that punishment was imminent and allowed herself to leave the room without permission. She became very angry and closed the door as if Rosie had tricked her. It turns out that the girl just didn't have time to listen to Mistress and mistakenly thought she had made a mistake. One, in fact. The fact that Rosie broke the wooden object had nothing to do with what they were talking about. In the meantime, the next day came. The boy could not get a good night's rest. He had some nightmares, and in general, the night was very restless. He wanted to sleep for at least another half a day, maybe more, but the assistant came and woke him up. The assistant always comes at the same time and asks how he is feeling. This time, the guy didn't get much sleep, so wasn't very happy to see her. The assistant apologized and said she could come back in a little while if needed. She realized that she had come at the wrong time and wanted to leave, but suddenly the Holy Sun stopped her and asked her to stay, except that he said it in a voice as if it meant something. She didn't like the idea because he usually treated her more neutrally, and sometimes he didn't even pay attention to her at all. Today, he suddenly started asking a lot of questions and looking at her like she's the next person he's going to try to confess his feelings to. Sensing something wrong, the assistant asked permission to leave, but the master ordered her to stay. He hinted that she would not be leaving soon and thus made her a little nervous, because this had never happened before. At first, she thought the Holy Sun was in a bad mood and wanted to yell without anyone seeing it, but to her surprise, he is completely calm. The best part was when he asked her for help, and from that moment on, the girl had a lot on her mind. After a few minutes, he got too close to her again and started to communicate in some hints. Moreover, he even touched her and gave her a few compliments, which had not happened in the whole time she worked here. With each passing minute, he's starting to hint more and more about the point he asked to stay and close the door to. Did he really? Did he forget Rosie and take the easier option? At first, the assistant couldn't believe her eyes and even got a little excited. But then she thought, and what is he doing this for, and what could be if suddenly it's some kind of test again? Meanwhile, she's been trying to hold back all day from telling her friends what happened, but so far she's keeping quiet and no one's found out anything yet. No wonder after this morning's situation, only thinking about him, she started dreaming of a happy relationship and believed the guy was totally sincere. Unfortunately, he doesn't care about the girl's feelings. He thinks only about himself and doesn't think about what will happen if she finds out the truth. The Holy Sun acts like he's been hiding it for a long time, and now he's finally able to confess his feelings, and even though it's very wrong, he deliberately continues to cheat on the girls. And that's not all. The next day when he wakes up, he starts to spoil the mood not only for himself, but also for everyone around him, and all because of the fact that he has accumulated too many problems, and now he takes it out on everyone he meets who gets in his way. He starts yelling at that girl he was having a nice conversation with yesterday. If you look at this situation from her side, it might seem that the gentleman is too weird. He really does not spare anyone. It once again proves the fact that the guy thinks only about himself. For him, it does not matter what the girl thinks, because there is only his own plans and nothing else. For example, now he's asking why the girl forgot about his request, even though he didn't actually say anything like that or ask for anything. Maybe he just thought about it and it didn't come to the point of letting her know about it. Furthermore, he starts to take offense at her allegedly letting him down and shows how much she disrespects her master. Even the people around him have noticed that he's changed a lot, although he probably just can't control his emotions because of all these accumulated problems. The guy did not show his fear yesterday, although inside he was very much afraid because his life was at stake. But that's what this girl has to do with it and why suddenly she deserves to be treated like this. It's unclear. At some point, she gets so angry that she doesn't know how to react. After he says that she's going to regret something, the girl can't help herself and starts attacking him. The Holy Sun reacted in time. He grabbed her leg and didn't let him hit her. It's a very strange situation. It's like some kind of dream. Eventually, she falls to the floor and realizes that it's not over. She wants to resume justice so badly that for now, she's not going to give up. She is sick of feeling guilty, apologizing, even though she has done nothing wrong. And on the contrary, she is even doing her job better than the others. Even though he's a saintly son, she doesn't think that gives him the right to do that. And she's hurt that yesterday he was hinting at something, and today he's treating her like she's let him down. The assistant starts attacking and attacking again and again. She is very angry and wants to see some tears and pain on his face. As it turned out, all this time came up quite a lot of people. Everyone was interested to see this competition because it is unusual to see how the Holy Sun fights with an ordinary helper, or rather, defends himself. In the meantime, a man has found out about everything and is sorry that the Holy Sun has not shown himself at his best. He asks the master to ignore the situation and give him another chance. The girl replied that this was impossible and said that there had already been a situation where she had tried to close her eyes and forget what he had done. So the chance of the situation going unnoticed was very small. Meanwhile, the assistant was tired of attacking the Holy Sun. She wanted to rest, and he continued laughing and joking as if it was bad luck. The girl doesn't understand. Can't anyone intervene in the situation and help her? There are a lot of people around, but they all look at the show and don't want to intervene. It didn't end there. She promised herself that she would strike at least one blow, no matter how hard and long it would be. She began to accelerate with such force that it seems no one can handle it. The girl felt very bad and confident. Only thing is, will it be enough to defeat the Holy Sun himself? He doesn't even react at that moment, just stands there silently and smiles, as if his agility is 1,000 times greater than the assistant's, and that's why he reacts so calmly. As it turned out, agility wasn't his only advantage. Literally the second she approached, he teleported a few meters further away and surprised everyone present. He won't stop smiling and proving that there is no one who can be stronger and faster than him. It's amazing how the assistant puts up with it at all and still doesn't give up on him. Finally, the moment came when someone decided to stop it. The foreman and the man came up to her. They tried to calm her down and suggested that she go to her room to rest a bit because they knew how hard it was. She had never competed with anyone, much less an opponent like the Holy Sun. The man came up and said that, for her level, she did just fine. Even newbies who come in with little experience endure a lot less than she did. Of course, that's very nice to hear. But as soon as that guy walked up, she felt uncomfortable again. Meanwhile, the Holy Sun came up and asked if she understood what it meant. The guy is trying to hint that from this day forward, he will watch her and perceive her differently than he did before today. This news upset even more. The girl thought he would calm down. But unfortunately, things only got worse. I really wonder how serious he is about this. Because at the very least, it would be weird to compete with an assistant who is in no way a full-fledged rival. She just wanted to get back at him for making up some promises and starting to yell at her. And this is not the most interesting thing. The assistant herself did not notice how after he approached the second time, she suddenly changed her opinion. Now he seems to her as cute and good as last night. She began to look at him with loving eyes, and even the others noticed it. It's all very strange to them, because everything that's happened in the last few minutes is as illogical as possible. It's like he used some kind of magic and didn't warn her about it, which seems even more horrible and unfair of him to her. Of course, Rosie couldn't help but notice it. She saw the look of love in her eyes, realized that the guy had done it on purpose so he wouldn't waste any more time on her, and also got sad. Of course, she wanted to talk to the Holy Sun and find out what it was. She didn't think he was so quick to change who he fell in love with. Except, really, if she dislikes it so much that the guy doesn't bother her anymore, that means she misses it and actually liked it when he kept her busy and was around all the time. In any case, he himself needs to think it over very well and finally decide who can help him with this mission, because it's very wrong to change candidates for this case so quickly. His biggest mistake was that initially, the guy started sending messages instead of saying everything in person. Judging by the very pensive look in his eyes right now, he still wants to make up his mind and figure out exactly what to do next. When suddenly, Master Rosie came up to him. She pretended she was just taking a walk and came here by chance. She didn't think she'd meet him. But in fact, the guy understood. He had not hesitated to hint that there might still be something between them. Now it was strange for her to hear it, because just now, she had witnessed another girl's sympathy for him, while he smiled and told her the same thing. She is not very happy with this situation, and like any other person who would be in such a situation, wants to understand once and for all what is going on here in general and how to understand it. She's sick of thinking about it all the time, guessing the true meaning of his every word and action, and not sleeping at night after that situation. She still can't fall asleep at night because there is a picture in front of her eyes where he confesses his feelings. But the biggest question is whether she wants it to be sincere. It's obvious that for the guy himself, it's nothing more than a game and a mission, so she doesn't want to reciprocate until it's clear whether he's sincere or not. She's constantly alarmed by his suspicious smile, as if he's really playing a game and has every next move planned out. After he had once again laughed at her questions and hinted that this game would go on for a long time, the girl couldn't take it anymore and became very angry. She said that if he wants to make these games and misunderstandings so much, he can do it towards anyone but her. The master values his time and doesn't want to waste it on something like this. The guy continues to look at her as if she mistakenly thinks there's some kind of game in this, while smiling and tricking her even more. In order not to get frustrated again and not to continue this topic, Rosie decided to ask what about that assistant. She said she heard everything and demanded something to explain, namely why he was doing it. She had long ago realized that he had a purpose, but what it was hard to understand. The Holy Sun had become so mysterious lately that it was unclear what he was really like. She may seem like a very strong girl, both inside and out, but in reality, she's long felt like giving up and stopping searching for some kind of truth. These last few days have reminded her of some investigation that she can't quite finish. No matter how much she thinks about it, she never gets to the bottom of it. After that, they began to compete with their powers again. She summoned some new energy and hinted that she could channel it in his direction. Unless, of course, he will continue this game and make that only he is the smartest here and can, and so easily control everyone by hiding the truth and his true intentions. The guy realized that he wouldn't be able to laugh for long, so he tensed up a bit and wondered if he should risk it this time too. Waiting for the moment when the master would turn away and stop controlling him, he took advantage of the situation, gained strength, and continued this game. He flew toward her with such speed, as if he wanted to push her off the mountain as she had done a few days ago. It's very strange because even if Rosie fell into the abyss, she would still be able to get up and her revenge would be much worse than what he had in mind. She would not only push him, but she would make sure that even in the next life, if he had one, he would remember her and be afraid to do a bad deed. Noticing that he wanted to do something, she didn't hesitate. She immediately picked him up in the air and asked if he wanted to apologize. At the very least, there were two situations, after which she would like to hear an explanation. Despite this, the guy didn't give up. He used his ability to make 5 more people like him, but not real ones, so that Rosie would be confused and wouldn't know where he really was and who to protect herself from. And it actually worked. The girl doesn't know who to control and who to follow to keep the situation under control. In the end, she didn't even expect it of herself. But literally with her thoughts, she destroyed those fake opponents, laughed and wondered what else he could do if he dared, of course. Lastly, without waiting for an answer, she used her power again and tossed him very hard into the air, so that he woke up a little again and realized how much she pitied him and how often she forgave him. This time, he could not react in time. The Holy Sun fell from a great height, and of course, the first emotion that could be seen on his face was aggression and the desire to do the same to her. But he clearly did not have the strength to do so. It didn't end there. She repeated the same thing and hinted that if he didn't handle it, or at least apologize, she could do it indefinitely. Now she can afford to smile because she has found out what his weakness is. Rosie felt herself in his shoes, and she even liked it a little. It's very funny and unusual. At least she has the right to do it, and even more than once. Unsurprisingly, he got up again and started attacking back, but this time the master was ready for it. She smiled and said that this was another mistake on his part. The second he rose into the air and headed in her direction, she created the strongest dome possible, but not just to protect herself, she locked him in it. He was locked in, but he didn't realize it right away, since the dome itself is transparent, and it was impossible to see when she had time to do it. Rosie actually enjoyed coming up with different ways to punish him. Because of her power, which is so much more than his, it can be used to her advantage. She's never used it in her normal life, but since the situation happened, he totally deserves it. The Holy Sun understands this himself, but so far he hasn't even thought of apologizing or admitting his guilt. By some miracle, he managed to get out of the dome and figure out how to get revenge. It's like the two of them are enjoying everything that's going on right now. They're competing as if they were kids. Even Rosie, who normally doesn't waste her time on games like this, is really enjoying herself and treating it like a fun game. And of course, an opportunity to punish this guy who's overconfident. In the end, she overdid it so much that she struck a blow that rendered the Holy Sun unconscious. At first, she did not notice it, but when he fell and did not get up, she was very much frightened. The girl ran up to him and regretted that she had even started this game. She felt very embarrassed and scared that someone might notice it. If rumors start, it will affect her reputation very badly, as suddenly, when she couldn't expect anything else, the guy opens his eyes and says it was a trap. He started to smile again and asked if she was ready to take another attack. Except now he had no idea how much he had pissed off the master and what she would do to him now. Rosie was horrified to think that something would be found out about this, and he was just joking again and didn't think about the fact that jokes were inappropriate in these situations. You can never joke about that, especially when she used a force that could actually destroy him. The guy wanted to say something else, but it was too late. The master was angry to the point of warning. If he could survive, let him read that he was very lucky because she was definitely not going to pity him now.